viewers, welcome to the another session of environmental impact analysis. Today we are going to discuss about socio-economic analysis, livelihood impacts, life sustenance, fragmentation, access to resources and displacement. Dear learner, we are in the process of understanding environmental impact assessment, which is a comprehensive project management tool to collect, analyze and evaluate environmental effects of a proposed project, and it is mainly conducted on major projects like hydroelectric dams, mining and road construction, which are likely to have negative impacts on the environment and people's lives. It is also a key planning and decision making tool that supports sustainable development. It is usually undertaken to ensure accelerated economic growth, improve health, income and also living standards of the poor majority. So we have to have this type of knowledge of environmental impact assessment. Now we have to recapitulate what we have studied in the previous session. So previous session we have learnt about baseline information of socio-economic environment. A baseline survey is a large understanding and requires a considerable team of surveyors. So sometimes this work is often outsourced to independent parties. So a baseline study should begin at the start of the project with an aim to provide a greater understanding of local communities like their culture, their health and well-being, their social and economic environments. So it will symbolize the concerns regarding a project and also show the potential positive and negative impacts of the project which is going to create. So a social baseline study that helps to prevent many issues like understanding project risks, impacts to communities and failures to contribute to social and economic development. Now we will be looking into the today's topic of discussion, which comes under types of impact and assessment protocol. So here we have to discuss about livelihood that can be best defined as the methods and means of making a living in the world. So the concept revolves around resources like land, property or otherwise crops, food, knowledge, finances, social relationships and also their interrelated connection with the political, economic and socio-cultural characteristics of an individual community. So a livelihood consists of capabilities, assets and activities which are required for living. A sustainable livelihood is defined by the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and Pacific as having the ability to cope and recover from the unexpected events while at the same time enhancing current and future capabilities. So this definition definitely interlinks the definitions of resilience, sustainability and livelihood, and each affect the others and highlights how to mitigate and then what are the mitigating strategies directly affect the sustainable livelihood. So this means that there is a need to have a large focus on reducing vulnerabilities of the community, like reducing poverty levels or building capabilities and coping mechanisms and focusing on community resilience. So there are 5 primary assets or capitals in the sustainable livelihoods framework that can influence sustainability and also community resilience, as they can all be affected during disasters or otherwise we can say that post project impacts. So if you will look into the screen, that is the framework of sustainable livelihood, and if we can apply framework given by the Department of International Development, which was the government department of the United Kingdom, which is responsible for administering overseas aid to promote sustainable development and eliminate world poverty. That will definitely helps to maintain the sustainable livelihood. It tells about the assets which are human, social, natural, physical and financial capital. Altogether this is known as the Pentagon model. So human capital that covers the skills, knowledge, labor ability and also good health, which collectively allow people to pursue livelihood. If we will come to the social capital, that consists of specific social resources which are necessary to pursue one's own unique livelihood. So these can be promoted by establishing networks, trusting relationships, and also membership of formalized groups. Natural capital contains the natural resources stocks from which resources flows and also sources which are derived. So these natural resource stocks that comprises elements like nutrient cycling and also erosion protection, and both which are useful for maintaining livelihood. So physical capital that represents the resources which are available to support viable livelihood. So this may include clean water, adequate sanitation, and also effective shelter. So these items are normally and then frequently bound by basic infrastructure. And next comes to the financial capital. We all know that it consists of financial resources which are required if people want to fulfill their livelihood objectives. And every national project is expected to provide relief and benefit to the citizens, especially projects like building of roads, hospitals, hydropower and water treatment plants that serve as a social amenities to the people. They are not luxuries, they are minimum social requirements. According to the World Bank, the conduct of EIA, that is Environmental Impact Assessment, is to improve project selection, siting, planning, designing and implementation by preventing, minimizing, mitigating or compensating for adverse environmental impacts and also enhance positive impacts throughout the project implementation. Investments in such projects are also expected to provide jobs, create employment and also expand the economy. So these large projects generally affect normally farmers who depend on the land for their livelihood and income. Apart from the social impact of major projects on the livelihood of farmers who lose their farms, sustainable agriculture will also definitely suffer, resulting in food insecurity and hunger. So these are the consequential effects. So environmental impact assessment, which is a tool to ensure better living standard of farmers in the affected communities, is sometimes seen as a tool to keep them in poverty rather than one of the improves the quality of lives and the environment. That is a fact. So the conduct of environmental impact assessment of major projects that leads to resettlement and then comes with various challenges, definitely, especially for farmers who lose their farms. So these resettlement process have resulted in the loss of many properties and caused the lives of many who depends on farming activities to be definitely worsened. Even though compensations were made, most of them could not survive because on the money given to them because they did not have the skills and knowledge to start a new ventures. Others could not also manage their monies properly. Some of the farmers who were compensated for the loss of their crops and farmlands, they could not also get new lands for farming and thus had to resort to other activities. But unfortunately, life later became very difficult because they could not survive on their new business due to lack of experience and also technical know-how. So it is therefore not strange that the World Bank advocated for an important policy standard against the improvement of a displaced population. Sometimes these challenges the displaced people face result in conflicts among the community members due to frustration, loss of properties, jobs and family ties. So the policy makers, development partners, stakeholders and also interested parties about the need to consider the livelihood of farmers or ethnic groups who get affected through such projects. So the main problem associated with resettlement is compensation, as the money given is sometimes inadequate. Most of the things needed to make resettlement is work, also like money, staff, skills and also critical time, which are often lacking or insufficient in the planning and implementation of resettlement schemes. So this situation therefore affects those who are resettled, as they hardly could live on the money given them, and sometimes it is very difficult for most of the rural folks to properly manage the money given to them. Small scale farmers who over the years have depend on regular income from their farming activities suddenly stop getting regular income and find themselves in precarious situation having bulk sum of money to manage. And another important aspect of the resettlement scheme I would like to put forward is that requires serious consideration is the traditional structure of the affected communities and also the need to involve them in the entire resettlement plan to avoid unnecessary confrontation. Sustainable livelihood thinking that has been developed in three clear ways: as a normative goal, as a framework, and as a set of principles for action. So, building on the various frameworks of sustainable livelihoods, a number of attempts already have been made to derive sets of livelihood principles, which will guide the practical application of the theoretical concepts of livelihoods. So, remember, these are most important principles which definitely improve the better livelihoods. So, these sustainable livelihood principles have set on the basis of learning experiences, learning processes, and then approaches. So, if we will see that the principles of sustainable livelihood assessment, first comes as poor as focus. So, that means the interventions which start with a complex understanding of poverty and also individual livelihoods and ensure that the poor are the central focus of the objectives of the intervention. And second principle is participation. So, interventions aim to empower stakeholders to play an active role in intervention and service provision. So, definitely they will recognize and try to minimize barriers to participation, but show an awareness of its practical limits. And third principle comes as a partnership. So, interventions work in partnership with other development partners, but try to minimize the controls and influence that exerted by more powerful partners. And fourth principle based on holistic approach. So, again interventions seek to respond holistically to livelihoods through cross-sectoral synergies, but without addressing everything through a single intervention. Fifth principle speaks about policy and institutional linkages. So, this intervention must build on linkages with the policy, processes, and also the institutions to avoid replication and ensure sustainable impact. So, linkages should connect the macro, meso, as well as micro levels and ensure learning and information sharing at all levels. And sixth principle focuses on building on strengths. That means these interventions recognize that needs and problems that can be tackled through working with existing strengths. Seventh principle is dynamism and flexibility in learning. So, dynamism and flexibility learning interventions need to learn and adapt from their experiences. That means they recognize that time and organizational constraints that can decrease effective learning. And accountability and responsiveness. This intervention should be accountable and responsive to a wide range of stakeholders, particularly the poor to which they are directed. So, sustainability should be sought on 4 levels on the basis of these principles which we have learned. The first level is financial level. So, that means they can continue without support from external funding sources. And second set is institutional. That means they have to integrate with existing institutions. So, they have to follow certain plan. And third set is the environmental. That means to maximize the sustainable use of natural resources and minimize the waste and pollution. And the fourth one is social. That means to minimize social exclusion and complement the local cultural context. Learner, we have seen that how the social impact analysis will affect the sustainable livelihoods. So, I would like to conclude over here that attention to all principles, sustainable livelihood principles is required for an intervention to have the potential to create sustainable impact. Principles which are not only a checklist but provide a framework for thinking critically through action. Sustainable livelihood analysis. They lend themselves to participatory planning that aim to address needs across a range of sectors. They may not be so well suited to large sectorial interventions, of course, but too much emphasis on a bottom-up approach definitely lead to the loss of bigger strategic picture and also differential coverage of services. The concept of ownership, participation, empowerment and also partnership definitely needed to be worked throughout critically in relation to the exercise of power in all stakeholder relationships. And most important is acknowledging and seeking to reduce disparities of power in implementation is a considerable challenge that requires new skills and working practices for all parties. Livelihood analysis, for instance, using a livelihoods framework, they may lead to an improved understanding of the complexity of ground level realities, but specific interventions should be carefully focused. Effective partnerships create a synergies that enables multi-sectorial action rather than using a single integrated intervention to respond to all aspects of livelihoods. Interventions that needs to fit in two ways what we have learned, that is into people's lives and also into wider institutional context of government, civil society and private enterprises. So active integration with existing systems definitely should be sought through incremental and adaptive processes. We need to refine our understanding of process and approaches and also action that learning to apply these more effectively in development interventions. So consideration of all four aspects of sustainability is essential to ensure an impact from interventions on people's livelihoods. Economic and institutional sustainabilities are definitely important and significant in the short term, but longer term social and environmental consequences of intervention must be considered in all cases. In the next session, we will discuss about economic impact analysis. Thank you.